What up, nerds, and welcome to another Yuletide episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 454, recorded on Monday, December 18th, 2023. Tonight, we're talking about the winner of the December poll, which was Adult Swim Yule Log from 2022. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got your boy Randeezy. What's up?
There's a podcast in the house! Have you heard of our podcast?
What's going on, buddy? Have you heard of our podcast?
Have you heard of it? Have you heard of it?
Have you heard? Please tell me you've heard of it.
Please, dear God, say yes. What a great moment in the movie. Relatable.
Yes.
Relatable.
Very relatable. That every time somebody slips in the word podcast into a fucking movie, I'm like Leo in fucking Story of Hollywood or whatever that fucking movie is. What is it? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
The Story of Hollywood.
The point. You know what it is.
This is like that meme.
It's the pointing meme.
Tight. Yeah, last but not least, calling in from Florida, we got your boy Soju. What's up, man?
Well, ho, 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 boys. It's your boy Yuletide Stains. Let's go.
Ho, ho, ho.
Christmas season. You know what I'm sipping on?
No.
Hot cocoa.
Oh.
Hot cocoa.
I was going to say Crevassier, but
gin
maybe
and
a little
juice?
splash in there. No. No, that's a summer drink, Bob. Come on. Well, gin and juice. Whoa.
Get out of here, you nosy little pervert, or I'm going to slap you silly.
You can have some spiced cider. You can have some eggnog. You can have some cocoa, Bob. No,
the Yuletide Iron Fist has landed.
No water at all. It's December.
I swear to God, if you eat anything besides goddamn gingerbread all Christmas, you are a Philistine.
There better be nutmeg in that water, Bob.
Oh, sounds awful.
Hot tub Christianity.
Yeah, this is our Christmas episode and our last regular episode of the year, which is crazy to say.
Yes, it is.
Another year. Did it. We did it. We're still doing it. Still doing it.
We're heading towards that 500 mark. It's crazy.
Yeah, barreling towards it. Episode 400.
And we got something super special planned.
You're going to love it.
I'm so excited for you guys to see what it is.
You're gonna go nuts.
It's gonna be great. Everyone will be pleased.
Start getting excited now.
Right now. But before we get to all that, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Here is another reminder. We do have our January poll currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this January. And the theme for January is shit we missed in 2023. There are 6 movies to vote between. Double stuffed. The movies are Mithrigan, No One Will Save You, Onyx the Fortuitous, They Cloned Tyrone, VHS 85, and When Evil Lurks.
Bob, how those numbers looking?
They have changed. When Evil Lurks is still in first place, 47%. Mithrigan, second place with 27%.
Oh.
Then we got VHS 85 coming next with 10% of the vote. And then we got a tie between They Clone Tyrone and No One Will Save You, both with 7%. Onyx the Fortuitous coming in with a piping hot 3%.
Whoa!
All right. Way to go. I love
Yes.
I love it. You know,
so even though we added extra movies, the voting proportions haven't really been very different this time around.
Yeah.
we're not pollsters. We don't have any clue how this is going to shake out any week, any month, rather.
That's proof we don't need to add more than 2 candidates to our polls. We just proved it. Straight candidates.
Bipartisan. Works every time.
Every time.
Every time. Get those votes in for the end of the month.
Let's just cut the fat.
And we'll see what movie we're talking about in January. Mini casts, dropping one every other Friday over on Patreon. Coming up next, Friday the 22nd, we got a brand new mini cast. This one was recorded by your boy Randeezy coming in.
That's right. I came out of retirement since fucking January. That was the last one I recorded.
You know,
Holy shit.
that was your New Year's resolution, wasn't it?
I know. And there's nothing more fragile than a New Year's resolution. I think we can all agree on that.
Technically, you did more.
I did more. You reached your goal.
I was sending texts like, wait, what do we include on what do I do?
We were all we were with the Slack crew in Jacksonville when we got that text, and we were giving you some sass.
That's fine.
How do?
That's earned.
How do?
That is earned.
Check out Randy's thoughts on Dream Scenario, the new Nick Cage hotness.
Which one?
He just had another one hit Hulu like last week.
It was like a cowboy movie, right?
No, it's...
I think it's got a cowboy movie too.
You shut the fuck up. That is insane.
So,
I counted 4
I think it's like
Nick
Dead
Cage
or
movies.
something Dead. It was
the Retirement Plan is the one I'm thinking about on Hulu.
Oh, I saw another
Dream
one I swore was Nick Cage. I could be wrong.
Holy shit. There's six.
Okay, I said that last week. I was like, is this his 6th movie? I just couldn't think of what they were.
The Old Way looks like the one you might be talking about, Juice.
Maybe.
Then there's Renfield, The Flash. I don't think I count that, actually. I'm going to call it 5.
Flash. Yeah.
Sympathy for the Devil, Dream Scenario, and The Retirement Plan.
Jesus.
So there you go.
It's a lot of
It's
shit.
a prolific man. And we saw him in person making guest appearances, and God knows he's promoting Dream Scenario and things. So
yeah,
this is a busy man.
Stays working for sure. Check out Dream Scenario over on Patreon Friday the 22nd. In other Patreon news, we did reopen the You Pick the Flick tier this past Sunday, and all 5 spots for the first quarter of 2024 went pretty quickly. Congratulations to everybody that managed to grab a spot. That would be Miles B, Matt S, Nate S, Nader Raid, and Gabriel R. Congrats.
Nice.
Double Nates.
Yeah.
Kicking off 2024, boys. Here we come. Setting that schedule up.
Big old doinks and
Old
Amish.
doinks.
That's what we're talking about next year.
Woo.
All
Can't
year.
believe it.
All year long.
All year.
Yeah, that's all I got for Patreon. Do you guys have anything you need to plug, promote, talk about?
I do. So I mentioned this last week. I will be featured on not a horror podcast, but a music podcast called Don't Believe the Hype. Yeah. And this is going to be their special kind of Christmas episode, but it's an Arctic Monkeys podcast. And I originally wasn't sure when the episode was going to be coming out. I know. And we talked so long that it became 2 episodes. So now I know when they're dropping. It's on Wednesday, which I guess is the same day this, podcast is dropping. And then Christmas Eve will be part 2. So yeah, you've got lots of soju to listen to.
It's a lot.
It's it's the perfect storm. It's multiple tornadoes hitting each other, I have to assume, because between the 2 of us, we come pretty close to 3 hours sometimes,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. So if you're interested in Arctic Monkeys or just want to listen to your boy Soju, talk about something, then check that out. And if you enjoy it, let them know your boy Soju sent you, so maybe they'll have me back on. Other than that, it's just I guess it's the last week to check out the Eyes Wide Shut special I did with Caitlin over on YouTube. Since the Christmas season will be wrapping up after this, so yeah, you can check that out. And other than that, my house is clean.
Yeah, aside from the upcoming episode, mine is also clean.
I got one more thing, actually. Mikey and I just recorded a new episode of Let's Get Physical Media. We're talking about our November pickups, including everything we got for the Barnes & Noble Criterion sale. So if you guys are interested in collecting Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs, anything of that nature, check out Let's Get Physical Media everywhere you get your podcast. That episode will already be out by the time this one drops. So slam it into your ears.
Cool.
Nice.
That's all
Bob,
I got.
this year, reflecting back, what was the bloodbath? When was the bloodbath this year?
Dude, I think it's going to be December, actually.
It's coming.
A dude gets gift cards, am I right?
A dude gets gift cards. Yeah.
I somehow, something tells me that the gift cards are a red herring. I think
just like
think maybe there's
communism.
I think there's maybe more than one. I think there's going to be more than one killer in the house. You know what I'm saying?
He's calling from inside the house. From inside.
No, Bob. You're running out of space.
It's a problem.
I know. I tried to fix that, but
I tried to fix it with shame. Public shame.
Millions of Mennonites over the years can't be wrong.
It's wrong.
Worked for the Catholic Church for so long.
Yeah. Look, repression works. I think we can all agree.
Yes, you're right. You gotta pray the Blu-rays away. It'll work for sure.
Hey,
Damn,
I think our house is clean, so here we go.
Wrap it up.
His house is clean.
All right, let's get into the main event. We are talking about Adult Swim Yule Log, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, pre-show, I saw you made your own little box that you've been prone to do for when you don't have it. So is there no physical media offered for this one, Mom?
Not that I could find. I don't think you can buy it.
All right.
It's pretty easy to stream, though. It seems to be pretty much everywhere. So you can watch it at your leisure if you haven't already. This is a newer release. It came out Christmas of 2022, and it's got a runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes. This was written and directed by Casper Kelly, and it stars Megan Hayes, Tordy Clark, Brendan Patrick Connor, Andrea Lang, handful of other folks. This director hasn't done a whole lot of stuff. He's done some more like Adult Swim type stuff. I know, Randy, you're one of your favorites, Too Many Cooks. He was the guy behind that as well. But I think this might have been his feature debut. It seems like he's done a lot of shorts, a lot of TV work, from what I can see.
He's done a couple things. Hold on, let me look.
Including Night of the Living Dew. Which is
he did the the Cheddar Goblin sketch or commercial for Mandy.
Yeah,
he has done a couple. It might be his feature debut.
That's what it looks like.
See any other? Yeah, certainly a TV guy for the most part, and this is a TV movie for all intents and purposes. So
yeah.
Makes sense.
Plot synopsis brought to you by IMDb is as follows. What starts as a simple Yule Log feed devolves into a surrealist nightmare as a couple and a group of podcasters spend the night in a double-booked cabin that is secretly occupied by evil and murderous forces. Gentlemen,
Dies tonight!
Have you seen Adult Swim Yule Log before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
Yes, I saw this last year. It hit my radar pretty quickly. This is you might say this is right up my alley. Like you said, the Too Many Cooks stuff, like all that sort of like late night stuff that was sort of pioneered by David Cross and those types on Adult Swim. I really like that sort of thing. I like the subversiveness of it. The more they do it, it's diminishing returns to some extent. But I really like the style of the guy that did Too Many Cooks, this Casper Kelly fella. I like what he's got. I like what he's got going on. So yes, I would recommend it, but I will say it is not for everybody. This is definitely one of those. It's like it's a little more experimental. This is like a very different movie, but it shares that similarity with like Skinamarink and analog horror and all that sort of thing, where you kind of have to have a taste for it, and you also have to kind of meet it where it's at. But this is a little bit easier to swallow than those, I think, for most people. So yeah, I would recommend giving it a shot.
Right on. Juice, what about you?
I saw this last year when it came out. I started to get the buzz of like, oh my God, this presents itself like it's a Yule Log video, just kick off. And I thought that was very funny and clever. So yeah, I watched it last year, rewatched it this year. And I gotta say, I was kind of surprised and disappointed that it wasn't as Christmassy as I remember. So Randy might have fucked our poll there in our whole month and our whole year.
Oh
really,
yeah,
when
I
you
did
think
that.
about
I
it.
did that personally. I've only ever fucked things, so
but yeah,
this guy fucks.
I think it's fun. I think it's a fun watch. It's kooky. It's got a lot going on, but I'd say it's more in like the kind of campy realm. So if you kind of like campy, over the top kind of horror, I think this is a fun watch. Bob, how about you? Had you seen this before? Would you recommend?
Yeah, I watched it last year when it first came out, and I definitely recommend it. I was listening to our wrap-up episode from last year, and this was something that we brought up on our honorable mentions, and it seemed like we spoke pretty highly of it, all three of us last year as well. Yeah, I think this is incredibly fun to watch. It's not quite like anything else you've ever seen, unless you're like really familiar with some of that quirky Adult Swim type stuff. It's just super bizarre and pretty. It's like a smart idea for a movie. It's a fun-ass ride. So I definitely recommend it. You don't quite get the Christmas vibes for sure, so if you're looking for that, it might not satisfy that Jones, but it's totally worth watching, I think. So check it out. Pretty solid recommendation, I think, from the three of us.
Yeah, I think so. Sounds like it.
For sure. Did you have something to add, Randy?
No, I'll get to it later. Never mind.
Okay. Well, we're going to spoil the shit out of this movie, and this is probably one you don't want to have spoiled. There's a lot of surprising things that happen. So
twists and turns.
Here comes
Here
comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
Bob, I have been excited for this plot synopsis ever since this movie got confirmed.
Oh, man.
Do you have it?
I do. And this is only a 90-minute movie, and there's so much shit that happens.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. So my synopsis is
it's a full season of American Horror Story in an episode or in a movie.
You're right.
I won't give you any sass.
It's a little long, but
I'll
read quickly.
Skip to the end.
Here is the plot synopsis for Adult Swim Yule Log. All right, the movie opens up focused on a pleasant fire burning in a fireplace. A woman enters and begins cleaning the room. Off screen, you hear a knock at the door. It's an older woman with a country accent and her adult son. The son sounds like he may have a learning disability. He's also very large and intimidating and wearing a spooky mask. He chases the woman around the room and eventually kills her. They quickly clean up the blood and hide in a back room as another couple enter the cabin. We meet Alex and Zoe, who have rented the cabin for a romantic weekend. Alex left his camera on filming the fire so he could make a nice YouTube video out of it. They have a glass of wine by the fire. Alex proposes to Zoe. She hesitates to answer, and then there's a knock at the door. It's a sheriff and his deputy asking if they've seen anything strange because there was a murder on the other side of the mountain last night. The sheriff asks where they got the firewood from. They say it's from a tree down the road. The sheriff says that used to be a hanging tree, and they shouldn't have cut wood off it. He refers to the area they're in as a hillbilly Bermuda Triangle and extinguishes the fire. The cops leave, and Alex brings up marriage again. Zoe says she feels cursed and that Alex should be with someone happier than her. Another knock at the door comes, and it turns out the cabin has been double booked. 4 friends invite themselves in and try to sort out the mix-up. Turns out they're also high on edibles and say they can't drive anywhere else for the night. They also have a podcast, and they are investigating alien abductions in the area for their show. We then get a sort of flashback to the same room of the cabin, likely taking place in the early 1800s, where a white man and a black woman named Rosa have a conversation. Rosa finds out her son William was auctioned off to the Armfield plantation, which has a very nasty reputation for abusing its slaves, and she becomes visibly upset by this. We then flash back to present day, where in the cabin of some of the group get in the hot tub, others go to unpack their luggage. One of the podcasters takes a shower, and we get a POV shot of the reignited Yule log from the fireplace floating around the cabin. It then goes up into the shower.
My log has something to tell you.
It then goes up into the shower and bashes the podcaster in the face to death. The group reconvenes in the living room. Alex shares a story about Zoe's coworker dying, and then she blames herself for it. Turns out she's potentially suicidal because of it. One of the stone podcasters sees a little Colonel Sanders-looking guy standing in the fireplace, calling him towards it. He crawls into the fireplace, drinks a soda. The Colonel takes him into a sort of fireplace elevator-type device that allows them to see through several different fireplaces throughout time into various different living rooms. They eventually stop on one, and the podcaster sees his mom sleeping on the couch, and she is pregnant with him. The Colonel says he will have a much more successful life if he crawls into the living room, writes A++ on a piece of paper, and puts it on the fridge. He does so and crawls back into the fireplace. He looks back and sees his mother's now covered in blood. The man has tricked him into stabbing her pregnant belly, thus he no longer exists. Jump back to the cabin present day, and the gang ends up finding the dude dead in the shower. They call the police and find out the sheriff is indeed not a male, so the guy that showed up earlier is an imposter. The Yule Log then bashes 2 more podcasters to death. Only Alex, Zoe, and Holly remain. They evade the Yule Log, but get knocked out by the masked man, who's been hiding in the room all along. Holly and Zoe are tied up by the fire, and Alex is tied up to a chair in the laundry room. The country-ass mom starts force-feeding him pimento cheese while her son tries to choose which woman he wants to impregnate. The mom also has Zoe's gun. Right as the masked man is about to pull his dick out, we get another flashback to Rosa that reveals her son William is a product of her relationship between her and her master. She then stabs him and his wife to death. Jump back to present day, and the Yule Log knocks the masked man out the window. He then yeets the log into the woods as the log screams, "I'm not a sodomite." Then we see a UFO in the sky. Back to the laundry room, Alex is being tortured by the mom still when a crazy-ass alien with some sort of gun walks in. The alien launches several suction tubes out of the gun that latch onto the mom's face and sucks her brains out of her head into a jug. The alien uses the gun on Alex next and then approaches Zoe. We then get several cut-together flashbacks of different timelines in the cabin. One is of some ladies at a wake. Another is of a man dressed in drag getting chased by his father, screaming he is not a sodomite. Finally, a couple boys playing with cap guns end up finding a rusty knife. Flashback to present day, Zoe grabs that same exact knife and cuts herself loose. The masked man then ends up killing the alien with an axe, and Zoe stabs the masked man in the dick with a knife to death. Zoe then sees the little colonel.
See my ding dong.
God, it's so fucked up. Zoe then sees the little colonel in the fire calling to her. She crawls in. They travel in the magic fireplace elevator thing to the night she was conceived. He tells her to place a baseball on the stairs so her dad will slip and mix up the spermies in his ball sack so maybe she won't be born and have to live such a hard life. That's says
how that works. Yes,
that's science. She says he must be from hell. He says no, he's just from a different time. He says you think you're a good person, but in the future they say you're not. What will they say about you in the future? Then Alex stabs him into the fireplace with a giant-ass fire poker, killing him, allowing Zoe to crawl out of the fireplace. They knock the Yule Log with an axe into the refrigerator and lock it in there. They get in the car and drive by the hanging tree, which is surrounded by a chanting cult led by the fake sheriff who says they can't leave. They end up driving his ass clean over. We get a quick little flashback of Rosa being walked over to the hanging tree and then back to present day. They drive all through the night until morning. She ends up putting on the wedding ring Alex has given her as the Yule Log appears just outside the car window. The screen then freeze frames and zooms out to reveal several computer monitors in an office. A man is designing a website for the Armfield Cotton Mill Lofts. Turns out he's married to his boss and they decide to leave work early. They talk to the AC repairman on the way out who resembles the masked man. They get caught in this weird sort of time loop and they all repeat the same phrases over and over again. The woman turns into Rosa, says she's taking her son to a ball game. The man turns into Rosa's owner and lover and apologizes for what he has done. He then turns into the colonel and apologizes again for what he's done. Rosa then kills him with a knife. Jump back to present day in the car with Alex and Zoe. The Yule Log bashes through the window and kills them both. Roll credits. Holy shit.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's a lot.
So I want to. Do you guys know who the little fireplace man reminded me of?
Colonel
Pierce.
Sanders.
Pierce Hawthorne's dad.
Yes, yeah.
Community.
I was like, yeah, it's so much that, except he doesn't have the ivory hairpiece.
Dude,
Like,
that hairpiece.
that's one of the funnier fucking things in that show, honestly. No, yeah, he's there's a lot of there's so many fucking characters in this, but there are a few standouts, and he is definitely one of them. I love the little man in the fireplace. He is my favorite. He's just so self-satisfied, and he's like a little dandy man. Like, he's so dandy.
He's just like a little Colonel Sanders Satan. Just like, hey, come on.
Yeah,
in the
Colonel
fire.
Satan.
Have a sody pop from the moose deer bartender, whatever the fuck it was. Like,
Yeah. What was the name of that soda? It was
Nutmeg
like Nurse. Nutmeg Nurse.
Yeah,
Instead of Dr. Pepper, it's Nutmeg
Dude,
Nurse. That went nowhere. That was for no purpose.
For next Christmas, somebody get me a Nutmeg Nurse.
I think that's your next cocktail, Bob.
I think
Bob?
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
Put Dr. Pepper
It's just
in there?
a Dr. Pepper. I just crack a can open. There you go.
Yeah. Dr. Pepper and eggnog.
Enjoy.
Oh, whoa.
This
I only drink nutmeg nurse at Christmas.
God, something I noticed about this, because like it's getting towards the end of the year, and I was like looking back at all the other movies that we reviewed. We kicked the year off with Barbarian, and on this watch, I noticed it has a lot of stuff in common with Barbarian, and we're kind of like bookending the year with these two movies.
Yeah.
It's got like
the set piece of the double booking, certainly.
The double booking of the Airbnb, and it's got this very atypical kind of plot going for it, and it's got these like crazy third acts with like creature things in it, and I think also this movie, as well as Barbarian, very much has like a major theme of like generational trauma going for it. So there's like a lot of things
you
that
could
are
say
similar.
Yeah, I think this one though is like certainly less self-serious than Barbarian.
Totally.
Like Barbarian is really going for something. It has something it's trying to communicate, and you can argue about whether or not it does that well. I think this has maybe a few themes, but I think that it's really just doing the too many cooks thing of throwing things against the wall and just sort of like making every beat change on a dime into something that you never anticipated. And it does kind of wrap things up. It has like a conclusion, but ultimately it's sort of like a meandering like odyssey of odd shit that happens, vignettes that just sort of end abruptly and change. And I love that about it. It's so experimental in that way, to see a film that acts that way, but still manages to have cohesion still for the most part.
It is mostly impressive how much they're able to jam in and it still make a narrative kind of sense. You know, it's not just like random things happening nonstop. You know, it has a flow to it. And next beat, that has some sort of internal logic. I will say, though, I was watching last year. I remember being like really impressed by this film. And then I started watching it again this year. And as I was going through it, I like distinctly remember the first 15 to 20 minutes for sure. The break-in, especially the way the camera was set up and being able to see that guy and the reflection of the bottle or whatever, and stuff like that. That was really great. But then I got to this moment where I was thinking to myself, did I finish this movie last year? Did I watch it all? Because then I couldn't for the life of me remember what was going to happen next. But then as the movie played out again, I was like, yes, I absolutely did see the scene. I know what happened. And then even I just watched this 2 days ago, I think. Bob was reading the plot synopsis, and when he got to the thing with the computer monitors and stuff, I was like, wait, what the fuck? And then I was like, oh yeah, okay. There's a lot in this movie that's hard to hold on to.
Yeah,
it is. I honestly like I had forgotten just about I had general like ideas about what was in this movie, but I had a few like key visuals that I did remember, and that's it. Like I remembered there being aliens, which for my money is the most inconsistent piece, the piece that I would feel comfortable ditching.
Yeah, that's fair.
But and then like the stuff you just mentioned, the stuff at the end with where like that same slave and slave master from the vignette earlier are in the modern time, and it's showing them as like she's the boss now and he's not, but then it turns out to be all an illusion. Like I've forgotten all of that shit, and I have no idea what the purpose of that was exactly, but it clearly is, like Rob said, playing with that theme of trauma, generational trauma and things like that, and race relations and shit, which is pretty heavy duty topics to be kind of this flippant with, if I'm being honest. Like
I think from like a horror movie standpoint, This it starts off with the log, which is just kind of genius. You're like, oh yeah, it's just a harmless log, and then crazy shit starts happening. So if you're not paying close attention, or you don't know what fucking Adult Swim is, you're in for a fucking ride, right? Which is hilarious.
Yeah, because it starts off hardcore at the beginning.
It does. Mm-hmm. It starts off as like what you think is going to be a traditional slasher movie, and then it pivots so hard because the slasher guy just spends half the movie hiding in a room, and you don't see him forever.
You forget about him. He's a Chekhov slasher. Like, he doesn't show up until much later again.
And it becomes a slasher movie again, but the killer is the fucking evil hanging tree, murder tree log that is sentient, and you even get like the killer
Not a log,
POV.
I don't have a log, but I mean, you know.
Not in the way that you think I meant. Which I fucking love. Like it turns out to be just an extremely unconventional slasher in that way, and I think it's a very literal way to show the whole like generational trauma. Like the hanging tree is still fucking killing people in present day. I don't know if that's what they meant.
Well, and it had some sort of like it even had a further legacy than that. Like they made it seem like it was an ancient evil deity sort of thing. And, you know, like that can justify a lot of sort of like, for lack of a better term, like time hopping or universe hopping and showing like how this tree is affected different. Like, so it justifies a lot of like weird things that otherwise, you know, just seem like completely out of nowhere. And it gives so much flexibility that they get to get away with a whole lot. That's where like I start to like, that's the reason that I kind of don't love the alien stuff. I think it's funny. It's very funny. And I kind of love that the redneck woman ends up as a pile of skin. I think that's hilarious.
It's a fun effect too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like a fun little sequence, but it's like the most dissonant. It does not feel like part of the same movie.
Yeah.
Which is shocking to say considering how like disparate so many of these different parts are, but that doesn't seem like it could possibly have anything to do with like an ancient human curse. It's just, it's too dissonant in a way that isn't like, I don't know. It just didn't work for me in the same way.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's the biggest ding in the world because I still did enjoy it. It's just the one part that I feel like could be excised from this movie comfortably.
Yeah. I would also be fine. I mean, it does kind of tie something back in if they are trying to say something, but just aesthetically and stuff, because even at least the alien, they make it work within the feel of the, you know, because they do some mentions of it. So you kind of anticipate it coming once shit starts popping off and everything. But it at least kind of fits it. It's not like Krampus where all of a sudden there's these CGI cookies. Everything else is well designed and those like really stick out. It still kind of fits in with what's going on around it, not narratively, but aesthetically, and it just kind of fits anyways. But the computer stuff really was the one that was just, you know, because you spend this whole time in this rustic cabin, you got this warm kind of feeling fire going on, just the look and aesthetic of everything is in the woods, this cabin. And I don't know if they're trying to do some kind of what's the cabin in the woods type of thing, but I don't know. I didn't really care for the screen situation.
I mean I could probably do without that. I think that the aesthetic of the alien is pretty far off. Like, I think that, I mean, it has the right level of cheapness to its design and silliness to it, but it's very dissonant from like the warm, hearthy tones of the most of this movie too. So that's kind of the biggest thing. I honestly was sitting here thinking to myself, what would improve that for me? And I think it would be if like the alien looked like an elf or was like, and they tied it in and made like Santa Claus is actually an alien who wants to suck the life out of people. Sure. Like do that. Like, and that would have saved it for me. But ultimately the whole thing is very like all over the place. And it starts off as like this crazy Contra agent that pretends to be just a standard Yule log that they just played at a normal time on television. If it was on any other channel but Adult Swim, I think that would be like kind of big news that somebody tried that and did that, but Adult Swim is kind of known for that. So I guess it lost a little bit of the punch from just too many cooks and that sort of thing already existing. And also I did want to shout this out too. This is what I was going to mention earlier, but this is a better time. This is not the first film that I have seen that does this. There is something, and I looked it up. It's called the Hawkins Family Yule Log. There's a bunch of comedians up in New York that I like, and I've been following their career a little bit. Brett Davis, Joe Firestone, Anna Fabrega, others. They made this Yule log video, and I haven't seen it in a couple of years now, but it's essentially the same conceit where it's still camera showing the Yule log and people are walking around and having conversations and some shit goes kind of batty, but it's a lot, to my memory, it's like dark humor, but it's still a lot more like humorous. And I believe they were more committed to like sticking to the fireplace. So this is a little bit different, but I do want to give that a shout out because that came out in 2017. So it was some years ago that came out, and it deserves to get a little bit of visuals on it as well. It doesn't have the same like production on it, but it has like a similar idea behind it. Anyway.
That's kind of another thing too. That brings up a good point to where this time around, I was thinking to myself, wow, this first part, even where you zoom out, but you're still in the stationary position. And like I said, you can see the killer from the beginning where you couldn't actually really see him very well in the reflection and stuff. It's like, that's pretty clever. And I think that's what really was the big high note for me that caught my attention their first time around. Like, this is a pretty unique, fun idea, and they're pulling it off well. And now, I definitely think that piece maybe could have worked as just like this really amazing short to do that as a horror short. You probably couldn't do a full length movie from that position, but I kind of like that a little bit more than switching to a traditional, we're walking around the cabin, we're flying around and stuff like that. It's just a fun idea that they, like, when they're using it for the first 15 or so minutes, works really well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm glad it changes and you don't just see the fire the whole time. It would get boring visually.
Well, not even the fire. The zoom out would be okay with me too, as a clever chain. How do you change that? But even that would probably wear itself thin.
They do have some like really nice cinematography in this. Like you mentioned, the reflection in like the ice bucket where it like auto focuses whenever the dude pokes his head out the door in the back, and also that like the moment where we get the POV log. And it's like floating around the whole cabin and up the stairs and everything. And the first kill is like POV with the log smashing into the guy's face. It's just like some nice moments, some eye candy in here, which I think it adds to the enjoyment of it, even if it's not super Christmassy. I like that kind of stuff as well.
I honestly, I think that they stretched the conceit as far as it could while still maintaining this manic energy that they established. I don't know how much further they could do just filming a stationary camera shot of one room. Like, there's just too much to happen. I don't know. Maybe it's possible, but I think they made the smart move for a feature-length film to do that. I agree that, like, there's something magical about it just sort of staying still and being like dedicated to that found footage format. But everything else changes so much and things go so bananas in this movie that I don't really care ultimately, because there's fucking aliens in this thing. There's little men in the fireplace that are demon boys. And like, I don't know. It doesn't ultimately, like, the immersion that it would have provided me is already gone. I'm instead there for the laughs and the audacity and the genre like mishmash that's happening. And your attention bish, famously, Juice, but I'm an immersion bish, so I'm very much into into found footage for that reason. I like to be immersed, but this movie can carry itself without that ultimately, and that I did not expect when I started this up for the first time. I thought it would commit itself and that it would have some spots of like dullness. Not at all. Just not at all. The fact that this keeps a pace like it does and manages to get some good scares and some like ridiculous laughs and the most fucking bizarre shit you've ever seen in the same fucking movie, like, that's pretty great. It's pretty impressive, I think. Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of negative things to say about that.
I think my favorite moment in this movie is like the equally disgusting and hilarious like pimento cheese force feed scene is, dude, I was cracking up at that shit. It's so fucking, that lady, the older lady, whoever plays the mom, kills that like country draw. She's just smacking on the cheese. It is gnarly. I loved it, dude. It's so funny.
I actually thought that they nailed both of those characters. Yeah. That group
Arvid the son
was actually, you could have made a horror film out of those two characters.
It could have just been them.
It could. You didn't need necessarily a flying log. I mean,
no, you didn't. You didn't really.
Yeah, you don't need the flying log or even. I mean, just setting it up. The sheriff comes in. He warns about a killer. They start getting tense. Some new people show up. Like the one kill in the shower, that could have easily been the big guy. He could have just snuck in there, bash that dude's face in easily. He's on his own.
Yes, but we also don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe there was more visual evidence of what it was that was killing him, but to my memory of it, watching it, it was only after the scene was over, or after he got beaten through the camera, basically, that I was like, oh yeah, that ends up being the log later. Because like the first time I watched it, I don't think I clocked it as
the log fly up there. No,
I don't think we did. I think at that point it was still a mystery.
You're not. Okay. So the camera like flies into the fire, and then we get the POV facing out of the fire, and then it like floats around the
Okay.
cabin, and then it kills the dude, and then the camera goes back to where it was, and you see the log like
Okay.
land back in the fireplace, and you're like, oh fuck, that whole time it was the log.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
Okay.
but like, dude, just the idea that there's a fucking flying evil log in this. I love how they bury the
Yes.
lead on that so hard. Like that only shows up it has to be halfway mark or later, right? Like it's not.
Maybe a third of
has
the
to be
way,
right.
something like that.
I would say maybe a third.
Okay, well, either way, like they hold on to that bit so closely. It's so closely guarded that I'm just like, I don't know, like it wouldn't work any other way. If they started this with it like hinting that the log is doing something and just sort of worked up to it instead of just like hit you across the fucking face with the idea, it wouldn't be as audacious and ridiculous as it is. And it, it's high risk, high reward. Ultimately, it gets the reward for me because I didn't see that shit coming at all. And that's the fucking rest of the movie. It is it's the primary villain of the movie story.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Yule Log, the movie. Of course, that's the villain. Of course, that's the fucking
Dude,
villain.
the sheriff's deputy who like sort of gives a brief info dump about the tree and how it's like a demon tree and it drinks blood and people were sacrificed to the tree and stuff. And he's like, sorry, I'm doing research for my ghost walk or whatever. We went on a ghost walk in Savannah earlier this year and they took us by an evil tree and said like that exact fucking thing. It was like straight out of a fucking ghost walk. I was
Damn.
Sentimental hogwash.
God, same exact
Yeah, you got
shit.
your ghost walkers, you got your podcasters. Man, it's just
Yeah.
us and the dark side of soul up in this
It
bitch.
really is.
And there's like, the you mentioned like the performance by the redneck family. This Adult Swim is famously a Turner company. They exist out of Atlanta, and there's a lot of like Atlanta service in this. And I think those accents, like these are just actors that naturally can have those accents, and it really like works perfectly fucking well for this kind of setting. So like, I don't know. I think that the performances in this are like pretty fucking good. Like there's not any one performance aside from the ridiculous fucking alien that I think is out of place or strange. Like it doesn't feel like it would be acceptable in any other like more conventional film.
Yeah.
And like they all play it straight. And I think that's part of what makes it so effective and part of what allows tension to exist is that they do play it all straight. Nobody in here, except for maybe Colonel Satan, is like hamming it up to an unrealistic degree. And he's a little demon boy, so of course he is. That makes perfect sense. Everybody else is like playing it so straight that you can do comedy, you can do horror. It's just like that's the key, man. If they did this with any sort of like wink wink nudge nudge any more than they have, I guess, then it would fall apart. I think the most wink wink sort of thing was literally the inclusion of the killer from Too Many Cooks. So,
Yeah, the fireplace elevator.
Yeah.
Rotation, yeah.
Yeah. This is as goofy as Colonel Satan Sanders is. Like he is truly an evil motherfucker when he tricks that one guy into stabbing his mom's pregnant belly and thus killing her and him. It's like really fucking dark, actually.
It is, but they landed a pretty ridiculous joke, which is that the woman who is dating him only dates Asians. They make that comment, and then they come back, and he doesn't exist. So there's just a whole
that
different
another
Asian
Asian
dude.
guy?
Yeah.
I'm
They're
oh,
like-
it's fucking hell. They do a lot of like great setup payoff in this.
They do. This movie has moments where it's very, very clever. And in a lot of ways, I'm very impressed by it. In some ways, I think maybe this time around it frustrated me more because in some ways, the tonal shifts I found a little more frustrating because I guess I didn't find the comedic and maybe some of the campy payoffs as rewarding as I found some of the clever choices that they made. So for instance, that, you don't even need to see the action horror happening, but you can like flash back to these two scenes. Like as far as like filmmaking goes and storytelling, that's pretty clever of the guy who kills his own mom, because they go in there, you follow his point of view. He's not doing anything. And then the turn of, wait, what are you talking about? What's going on? And this demon's prerogative. And then the mother, a pregnant mother slaughtered on her couch. That's heavy fucking shit. And to do it and to create such a scene of gore, but in a way where it's not just like a Terrifier, you know, where people are just, you know, it's clever. It's done really well. Man, I respect the shit out of that. But then, like you said, it goes to a moment of comedy where I kind of want to linger on the brutality that I just saw, the impact of that brutality more than just it's almost like Marvel. That's like fair. We were talking about with Godzilla, where it's like, give me a moment to sit with this grief, or give me a moment to linger on what you're giving me instead of like jump into some kind of joke or something. So I feel like maybe that can water it down a little bit.
I could see that point of view. I would say that like a movie like this, however, is so batshit bananas that it kind of, I don't have a problem with it here. And it's also not like a pervasive issue like it is in the Marvel movies, where they want you more than anything to feel like those characters are real characters that you can identify with and that you can see punch somebody real good and feel good about it and like all that shit. But like in this movie, it's really just more the audacity of what the filmmaker is going to show you. It's more a like a dream logic conversation with a filmmaker than it is. It reminded me
of specifically the fireplace scene of Twin Peaks with like the Black Lodge and the backward talking man and all that.
My log is afraid of fire.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point, Bob. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it is. It's like the dream logic is absolutely there, and like that's what I loved about the Too Many Cooks thing or whatever. Like, but also to an earlier point of yours, Juice, there is a diminishing return, and this is the kind of movie that I really like. This movie. I'll talk about that in my review, but I don't think I can watch this every year, because every time you watch it, the impact's going to go away a little bit. Even as much as I didn't remember this year, I'm going to remember just a little bit more next year. So I'm going to give it a couple years, or maybe 1 or 2 years before I give this another view, because I don't want to like ruin the majesty of like having those moments where I'm like, oh shit, that was that. Oh, that's what happened to this guy. You know, like all that shit is part of what makes it so effective. Once you lose that, there is still stuff to cling to, but it's just not. It's just kind of watered down at that point by virtue of just repetition.
Yeah, I could see that. This movie is like so fucking mind blowing the first time you watch it, because it's absolutely impossible to guess what's about to happen in this movie. It just changes on a dime so many times, and you just like, my mouth was just like wide open. I was like, what the fuck is this? What is happening in this fucking movie? They talk about in some of the flashbacks, the Mr. Armfield being like the really awful plantation owner, slave owner. I was wondering if the little like Satan Sanders guy is Armfield in the fireplace.
That's something I didn't consider. That's a good call, Bob.
Yeah, he's like so evil and sadistic, and he's got the right accent for, you know, the time period, and I don't know, it just kind of made some sense to me. He's tricking these people into like bettering their lives, and really just they end up killing themselves, and possibly.
I mean, yeah, it's possible, and that's the thing is like there's a lot of like loose ends in this movie that in any other movie would be disqualifying. Like it would be a ding, you know. But because of the way they set up this narrative, and because it is just as wackadoo and like turn on it, because its main thing is to shock and surprise you more than anything else, that those things you kind of gloss right over that. You don't need to worry yourself with that. I didn't anyway. Like you can dig into it as much as you want. You can try and sort things out, but ultimately the pleasure is in the experience with this. Yeah, and I think that's, you know, everything else is a bonus, you know?
Mm-hmm. Another aspect I really liked, was this, the villains essentially fighting each other, where the alien comes in and kind of saves the guy because he sucks all the juices out of the crazy lady, the mother. And then the big dude fighting the log off with the hatchet. And it just, that kind of aspect I had kind of forgotten about too. Where everyone's just kind of fighting for these people's souls in a way. They're the ones who want to get them, but it allows the people to live just a little bit longer. That was kind of a cool aspect.
I loved that. That's the American Horror Story of it all for me. Here's the thing: is like I always, whenever we talk about American Horror Story, I usually say the same shit. My big criticism of that show is always the same, which is that they cram too much into a season, and they just try and do too much. They lay out a lot of good groundwork, and then they can't follow through because they start like interweaving in unexpected ways that I think they're supposed to delight us, but it's really just confounding and confusing for that long of a series for like whatever it is, 8 hours, 10 hours of a season. Compact that shit into an hour and a half, and all of a sudden it worked perfectly for me. Like they tossed in aliens, and I don't love that part of it, but like it worked within the construct that they put together. They have, like you said, villains versus villains. They're playing off each other. There's like 24 characters in this fucking thing, and they all like the unexpectedness of how they interact with each other works perfectly for a story or for a movie that is all about experiencing like shock and surprise versus a series which is supposed to have like emotional heartstrings and all that sort of thing pulled through on a much deeper level, or is at least seemingly trying to do that. So it's weird that like my biggest complaint about that series is one of the biggest benefits to this movie. It's just like the change of format changes everything about that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The like slasher, the big guy, he takes care of the log for the people, and he kills the alien for the people. So like he does them two solids.
You want to see my ding dong?
I do not. Put some pimento cheese on that thing.
Yeah. Oh god.
The moment where he yeets that log and the log. The log says,
Not a log. I don't have a log, but I mean,
It says, I'm not a sodomite, and then you see the UFO appear in the sky. It's like the most confounding 5 seconds of like any fucking movie I think I've ever seen in my life. It's insane.
Because you also think it's police, like you're kind of led partially to think it could be police when the lights show up, and then it's just a full-on fucking UFO. They set up the UFO, and that's the other thing is like they set up a lot early on in a way that makes everything that happened, for the most part, acceptable to the logic that is set forth.
Yeah. One of the flashbacks we even see, it's one of the black and white flashbacks. We see a woman like walking towards the window, and it's a bright light, and it's I forget the woman's name. The podcasters are there to like interview her granddaughter, and I assume that's the lady, and she's like being abducted by aliens, and they want to talk to her granddaughter, and that's why they're there. I can't remember the name. It doesn't really matter. But so like even in the flashbacks, as short as they are, there's like a lot that you can pull from them. Like the dude that's wearing like a nightie or whatever, who's getting chased around by his parents, saying I'm not a sodomite. Like the log repeats that. So like when you first hear the log say it, you're like, what in the fuck does that mean? And then you see it again later in the flashback, and you're like, oh my god. So like that kid was probably killed by his parents, and like the tree just like remembers all this horrific shit that happened in the area. So like it seems like completely nonsensical, but it's relatively thought out and well planned. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, to be fair,
relatively.
That's the thing is I feel like there's a well of riches that probably could have been really rewarding. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, maybe another negative for this film, where it's like if you didn't have the alien, maybe because there was that one flashback with the kids and the knife drops out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You never see anything with those kids. Their kids running around with little pop guns,
Yeah.
So we really get the two instances of the woman, the old timey woman, and then the guy who says, I am not a sodomite. Those are the only two ones that make you think that this log is possessed by the past.
The kids have a knife. They find a knife, and then Zoe grabs the knife and uses that exact same knife to cut her ropes free. So
I know, but you don't know how to have any idea what happens with the kids.
True,
is what I'm saying. They don't have any kind of story.
There was a moment watching it this time because I knew that it goes off the rails, but I couldn't remember exactly how at each beat. Like I didn't remember exactly how one thing leads to another. There was that moment with the knife. Like even before that, like I thought I saw the knife, like the way it was panning through the past, like it would have like segments of the past on screen.
Yeah.
Really interesting, like camera device. I thought maybe at one point that one of the characters from like our time or whatever was just going to reach into the black and white and pull the knife out, or they were going to start interacting with the past things. And that would have been cool. Like, I don't know. You could have done something like that instead of the alien. I think that's true. But I do think that like we got I think it was heavily implied that those children were murdered by their mom. So I don't know. Like I don't know. I
thought maybe one of the kids maybe murdered the other one.
Could be.
I thought that might
Possibly.
have been the direction they were going. Yeah.
But like there are hanging, like Rob, to your point earlier, like there is like a lot of like cohesion, a lot more cohesion than you might expect. But there's still a lot of hanging threads. Like for instance, when they're driving away at the end and they run over Sheriff Poopy Pants, whatever, and they're driving past a barn that's behind him. There's just a nude woman in the barn standing there, and we have no idea. There's nothing mentioned about that.
I was just before that. Holly runs off on foot because they can't find the car keys. You don't get a good look at the woman in the barn, but I'm wondering if they grabbed Holly and that's Holly in the barn. You don't know.
It's possible. And it could also be the granddaughter who's, Oh, and there also is like, speaking of like in the past, there was some girl in the 90s who killed herself. Like they showed that too.
I forgot about that one too. Okay, that's fair enough. That's another one for the log. Okay.
I think there's probably a couple more that we just can't remember because they're just like flash and you'll miss it sort of things.
Yeah.
And I love the way that they have action showing on each of those time frames, even as things are moving. That's what made me think maybe they were going to interact. Like, who knows? Yeah. And, I don't know. That's one thing they could have done that I think would have like pushed my enjoyment even further. But I'm not necessarily saying that I just think they missed the boat a little bit on it.
It could have been tighter and explained more, but I'm also fine without it.
Right.
It's totally enjoyable without it.
Very few movies feel that way where you don't, like very few movies like in the horror genre or whatever, they have to be like really fucking stupid usually for me to not care, or like really, really funny. And I think this one is like kind of both. Like it's stupid and funny and it's smart and it's dumb. It's just so many things and it changes its tone on a dime and every rule is just tossed out of the window. You just kind of ride with it. It is a fucking theme park ride.
It's kind of bothering me more and more as things come up. Since I just watched it, and as I was watching it the second time, I was like, did I finish this movie? I'm saying now, like, oh my God, I forgot about that. I forgot about the girl who killed herself. I forgot about the girl in the barn. I forgot about these things. And in some ways, it's like bothering me because I'm thinking like, yes, this is a wackadoo movie where like things change on a dime, but I'm wondering if they use this kind of device of, look, there's some more random shit in the background. We're going to do some more to make it feel more thrilling than it actually is, because when I'm reflecting back on it, I'm like, well, that doesn't matter at all. It immediately evaporates from my mind.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing though. Like they are intentionally sensory overloading you so that like you'll have one shock stacked on top of the other, so it compounds. It's like a combo. Like I don't have a big problem with that. If that's your goal, is to like turn this standard ass Yule Log video into the most bizarre thing you can, then that works perfectly for me. That seems to be the goal, and I don't have any problem with like blink and you'll miss it sort of shit that doesn't have an explanation or an ultimate purpose, especially because in the narrative of this movie, broadly at least, they are justified for being there. For the most part. So like I have a hard time like dinging it for that, because if it's compounding my thrill, then I'm not complaining about that, and the experiment is working. Like, And
sorry, go ahead, Juice.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was thinking about the like generational trauma thing. I think that really does kind of tie the majority of the movie together. Maybe not everything. Like the alien, I probably just like, we need to have an alien in this thing because why the fuck not? But like,
because you'll never suspect it. That's the reason.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that, really. But like the reason the country mom and like the slasher dude are there because like she wants a grandbaby, and like she raised her son in this manner that is, explains why he is, and like they're gonna do the same with a grandbaby. And Zoe is like not really stoked about getting married because she doesn't want to turn into her mother. Like I guess her mother had some problems, so like that's hanging her up a little bit.
Well, and she like accidentally got a colleague murdered, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Well, but that has nothing to do with the generational trauma.
No, not necessarily.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about Zoe's issues, but yeah, go ahead.
But she does mention like not wanting to turn into her mother specifically, and we see like whenever they go into the fireplace, the guy like ends up trying to improve his life, and he kills himself and his mom, and like I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of the podcasters wanting to talk to the lady who got abducted, her granddaughter who's probably fucked up. I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of like intentional through lines with that. And then at the very end, whenever they get like in the office and like the people start like literally cycling into all these different people and saying the same thing, it sort of drives that home. And the fact that the log like harbors all this horrific things and like literally repeats them, like the words that these people say in these horrible moments, and then starts killing people while it's saying the same shit over and over again. It feels like there's a lot happening to like touch on that. But of course, there's a lot of room to read anything you want to into this movie as well.
Yeah. Also, I mean, to go off of that point, since it's not touched on much, but I mean, the people who are outside surrounding the tree at the end definitely have some visual influence from something like the Ku Klux Klan, which then would also be generational as well, passing like those traditions down and stuff. So, yeah, fair enough.
And, you know, there's like, even within like the flashbacks, the biggest flashback we get of the slave owner and the slave woman whose son is sold to an evil man by this dude. Like, we find out like when she kills him, she's screaming at him that it's his son. Like, so we have like, he sold his own son to a sadomasochist because he was afraid of his father's fire.
Yeah.
So like I think there's legitimate like true horrors that you can point to in this movie that are being played off of.
Yeah.
And it's just so nuts that it gets to be bedfellows with an alien that sucks a lady's innards out. Like, it's just so bananas.
Cheese, man. I can't get over the
pimento cheese. Yeah, that scene is very uncomfortable. Like, it's that simultaneous. I don't know. Like, they cut between that and Arvid, like raping women, basically, and it's not a comfortable few minutes of that fucking movie. No. Jesus Christ, it's too much. Too much. Yeah. But you also like. Somebody said that like they thought Arvid might have been like mentally handicapped or something like that, and I like throughout the movie I was kind of like, yeah, I forgot, that's kind of fucked up. Like, I don't know why they would do that, but then they show this like alternate reality of them and where he's just like a pretty much a normal guy working a trade job, like almost as like a punchline to the conversation that the mother and Chris or whatever the boyfriend's name is had when he was tied up. But like, so I guess he's not. Like, it seems like it's indicating that he's not that. He's just like abused and fucked up because he was raised by his mom. Another generational trauma thing.
You could definitely read that into it.
He wants a grandbaby. That's why she tells him how to rape women. Like, fuck.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. It's really fucking dark, actually.
It's really dark.
Yeah, that's why I said the most memorable. I mean, the thing that stuck out in my mind is the beginning of this, where essentially someone is raped and murdered off of screen while you hear it at the very beginning of this film, and they start to burn her bloody underwear.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's how this movie starts.
Yeah.
And it's not even remotely the craziest thing that happens in this movie.
Really not.
It's just one of the darkest. But yeah, I don't know, man.
Could you imagine just being like a mom on Christmas, like, oh, let's put on this Yule log, you know, and they're opening presents, and then 5 minutes into it, that happens.
Oh,
and
Adult Swim, honey, you like that
bra on screen and shit. Like
that has to have happened at least once.
At least once,
dude. I want to hear that story so
call in
with your story. Actually, prank your mom with this Yule log this season and tell us how it goes.
Now, one thing I will say, since I made the comment of, oh, this wasn't as Christmassy as I thought, even after I'd finished the movie, I was like, oh, whoa, what? I thought there was some kind of Christmas going on in here. And then I looked at the description, at least how it is on Max, and it was something like, celebrate this Christmas season with Adult Swim, like Yule log or something. I was like, oh, man, well, you could have at least given us that a little bit. I mean, come on now. Come on.
You should let people know that there's fucking trigger goddamn warnings in this movie. That's true.
Also, too, if you're gonna set it up, too. Is I mean, the mom when the son kills his mom in the extra room, could have been like a Christmas scene going on there. Something cabin.
I don't know. Like, well, the Christmas thing. Like, I don't know if I fully like see it that way. Like, there's not like a Christmas tree or any of that shit. But the very existence of a Yule log video is as Christmas as it needs to be.
That's true.
You know, I don't know. I don't have a big issue with it. To me, it's Christmassy enough just by its context.
But not Prometheus.
It's got a
No,
damn
not
tree in
Prometheus,
it.
because its context is just the tree doesn't work, but
It's got a Fraser
having
fir.
a burning hearth.
It's
and
about
making a
alien
fucking Yule log
Jesus
thing.
being born,
Yeah, dude.
Randy. Okay.
It is.
Yeah, okay, well,
It's
you
a
know,
Christ story.
okay, enjoy your Christ story. You guys enjoy turning that into a Christmas movie. I'm out on that.
It's already done. It's on our Instagram.
I watched this whole thing, Folding Ideas video, about like just the very nature of Christmas movies is just like, if you watch it enough times at Christmas, it's a Christmas movie. That's how it goes.
That's
and
fair.
I'm just, I literally, when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, I saw that meme about Prometheus. It's going to become a fucking Christmas movie to people.
We got to push
I'm
it.
going to see that shit in.
We got to make it
Okay.
happen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, no,
I'm
no.
not doing
I meant we got to push that idea.
I thought you meant we gotta finish up
Oh,
because
no,
there is a
shit.
couple more things I did want to bring up. But
okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, we should start landing the plane, but if you got a couple things you want to mention, go for it.
I'll just make it quick. Like one thing is like a little bit confusing about this is called Adult Swim Yule Log. At least that's what the original title card says, but it ends on and it says the fireplace. So I find that to be a little bit confusing. It's a great name but like I understand the need for a bait and switch, but it kind of like it's now listed on like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb as Adult Swim Yule Log. So like it kind of shot itself in the. I mean, as much as I think that's a great name after the fact, it's just kind of like too little, too late. I'm never going to be able to call it that.
No. If you said the
Same.
fireplace, I would be confused.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But then additionally, there is a song, a fireplace song that plays over the credits. It's really awesome. And I immediately recognize the voice. This person singing is better known as Puddle's Pity Party. You guys familiar with
the
Puddles?
clown? The clown?
The clown, yeah.
Yeah.
That's him. That's his voice on there. It's
Damn.
fucking great. I just want to give that shouts out because I'm a Puddles boy. I like puddles.
That's a good look.
Cool.
Come up.
Sure.
Real cool. Cool. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we rate this thing? No?
Not me.
Let's do it. Let's get into it. Out of 5, Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Adult Swim Yule Log, a.k.a. The Fireplace?
Yeah, so I'm going to come kind of in the middle of my two opinions that I've had, where it's like last year, I do remember being super high on it. And this year, I think I was much more definitely lower on it because maybe my expectations were higher and I had forgotten so much that it was kind of like watching it again for the first time, but with higher expectations. And so I'm going to kind of mash those two opinions up to kind of be fair, not just go off my most recent watch. Because I kind of agree with Randy where I don't think I'm going to watch this again next year, but I'm going to keep it in the back of my mind to watch it again, maybe in 2 years or something like that to maybe find the even ground on this. But I think I really appreciate the clever moments in this. I really am a sucker for a simple, seemingly kind of idea that's just pulled off that makes you go, oh my God, can't believe it took somebody so long to do this, but that's so clever. And they have several moments in that. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed the static shots, even with the zoom out with the guy creeping in the background. I do admit that it would be really, really, really difficult, near impossible to make a full length movie out of that. But for what they did and that time that they spent on it, I really enjoyed it and thought that they handled it really well. Same thing with the guy killing his own mom. I just thought that was a brutal moment that was just pretty clever and handled in a very tactical kind of way that I just appreciated. On the flip side of that, though, I do think there are some things in here that feel kind of cheap or thrown at the wall, and maybe they kind of like dilute this a little bit. I'm not like as negative about the alien, but it probably is like the kind of worst thing about that. Also, too, the performance from all the performances for the most part were fine, except for the white guy in the past who's sitting at the table and he's talking about selling the sun. His performance kind of stood out to me or was rubbing me wrong. I don't know. I was thinking like this is definitely the worst actor in here. I don't know.
Felt
it's just really
stiff. Yeah.
Yeah, he felt like a dude who came off a TV. Like, I don't know. He just didn't feel on par with everybody else.
I didn't capture that myself, but in fairness, the credits do say that all extras were central casting, which is famously kind of like a bit of a crapshoot.
So yeah, I also too not crazy about the scene with the computers. Even the ending, not super crazy about. For the most part, I'm okay with the camping moments. They just don't hit as hard or aren't as rewarding as the clever moments, but I do really respect being able to put all of this together because it is a hodgepodge and most of it works. Some of it doesn't, but even though it doesn't, it's still not really shitting in the cereal. You know, it's still edible.
It's still, you can eat around the shit.
Just, you haven't ruined the dish.
My milk is brown. Oh God.
So it's I was a little bit more disappointed in the lack of Christmas this time around, but maybe I'll get over that next time. So like I said, I'm gonna kind of fit somewhere in the middle. I feel like last year I probably would have put this somewhere around like a 3.5 tops 4, just for like how clever it was, but this time I'm feeling more around a 3, so I think I'm gonna end it at a 3.25 just to kind of find some kind of balance.
Fine balance.
3.25 from Juicy J. Right.
Yep. Bob, out of 5, why don't you go ahead and rate Yule Log or The Fireplace?
I'll slide on into these DMs. The idea of this movie is just absolutely batshit insane, and I love that somebody was able to make something as weird as this. It's such a interesting hodgepodge of ideas and tropes that we are familiar with, kind of turned on their heads, and also some just crazy nonsense that I don't know that I've ever seen in any movie exactly this way anyways. The performances are fine. I think there's a lot of jokes in this that like kept me laughing pretty consistently. And that first time you watch it, you're just like so engaged by what's about to happen next because the movie just continually like evolves and you just really are along for the ride. And if you give yourself over to it, I think you're gonna have a really good time on this sort of like roller coaster ride that this movie is. It handles just a laundry list of truly like terrible, horrific ideas and like moments in time in a way that is mostly palatable, which I can appreciate that they're able to do both things. They're able to have like these really like terribly down moments and then have a log say I'm not a sodomite, which is fucking nonsense. It's just like the way that they can kind of balance both these things. I appreciate it. It seems very difficult to do just one. And they're able to do both. The pimento cheese scene, dear God, I love it. It's out of control nuts in the butts. The alien, I kind of like that it was this goofy practical looking thing. And then it sucks brains out of people's faces and you see it dump into like this little tub. So it's like funny at first. You're like, what the fuck is this goofy ass alien? And there's brains in a tub. It's wild.
A silver alien. They're the worst ones.
The worst ones. The slasher is like horrific and effective, and there's a lot of really interesting things they're doing with the camera work and cinematography, and it's just amazing that it makes any sort of sense. Like there seems to be like I mentioned a through line with generational trauma and all that, and they can pack all of this into just 90 minutes, and it's impressive. I think I don't know if it like all hangs together perfectly, but I also don't need it to because I think it's just interesting to watch unfold and experience, and you know you can take out of it what you want to, or as much or as little as you want to. It's a wild ride. I really dig it. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Randeezy, how you feel?
May I do the thinking, please?
All right. So I am very much a fan of this. I kind of echo most of your sentiments, Bob. I don't know. I also think like they really do broach some very dark territory in this. And I think it's totally fair to say that they maybe do it a little flippantly, but personally, I didn't feel it. So for my personal experience, like it was as a surmountable shock. That stuff is in here. And I do think it's fair to say that like this is not going to be for everyone on that basis alone. But for me, man, like both years I was surprised by so much. I was a little bit less surprised this year than last year, which is why I agree that we're like this is not going to be an annual watch. It's too tripped up in needing to be surprised. That's the whole point. Like, not the whole point, but that is like, that's the whole aesthetic of the movie, is surprise after surprise after surprise. How can we make this go from A to B to Z to fucking 2 million and X3 in 5 seconds? Like, how can we go as far as we can with this? And it does that. And the fact that it keeps so much cohesion in its story through that is fucking incredible, honestly. You know, I'm, like you guys said, I was a fan of No Too Many Cooks. I still am. But that was just straight up throwing shit at the wall. There wasn't a ton of like, there wasn't a through line there. It doesn't make sense. It's audacious. This kind of does both. It has a bit of an arc. And I think that the acting overall is great. I didn't have a problem with anybody, like, personally. I also think that like all the threads that are left hanging, I don't necessarily need to know more about, because they're just there to sort of like, you know, multi-ball the experience for me a little bit. I don't know. I just don't have a lot of big complaints. Probably the only thing I can say about this, not the only thing, but like probably the big thing for me is like, I felt like the alien aesthetically, like visually, I think is really what I'm keying in on, was just a little bit, was the only thing in here that was a little incongruous with the idea of a Christmas Yule log video, to the point where I wasn't super into it. And the computer scene, those two scenes are just a little bit further. I don't hate either scene though. I think that like the alien is still kind of fun for what it is, and it leads to some great jokes, and you know, whatever. This is the kind of movie that can support a little bit of an alleyway like that, and so I just kind of live with it. But like, as far as like my biggest not complaint, but like my biggest ding for this movie is just that, for as much as it is touching on and dealing with and thematically like weaving in there, I don't know that it really says anything. Like, it's not really like, I don't know that there is a point beyond the experiment, but they do infuse some pretty dark topics in there. So like, you could argue that they're not doing that responsibly by not actually saying a whole lot, at least not that I was able to clock. And so the alternative is that they are saying something and it's just not clear enough for me to get it. And so that's a failing on both of our parts. So yeah, that's my complaint. Like, we talked about Barbarian in comparison to this, and that clearly is pointing at something in particular, and it's making a single allegory that makes a kind of cohesive sense in itself. This movie, not so much. It's not really going for that. So I kind of meet this movie where it is, and I also lament what it might have been if they had pushed just a little bit harder on it and tried to make everything in it sort of like cohesive within itself. They did really well with that, but not perfectly with that. And the vignettes can be a little hit or miss, just a little bit. So yeah, I think I'm going to echo Bob's 4. I think I'm going to give it a 4 as well. But again, like, experience-wise, it's subject to change. I think last year it might have been a 5-star experience if you had asked me right after the movie, because I was just so high on it. I was like, this is fucking nuts. I can't believe this got made. I can't believe anybody paid money to make this. I can't believe they aired this on television. Like, not all that stuff is so audacious, but ultimately, as a film, I think it's not bringing a whole lot more to the table than what we have discussed here. I don't know that I could continue to talk about it at length for hours and hours and hours and hours, the way you can, like, I don't know, a ton of other movies. 7, yes. Like, this is not one that I need to necessarily, like, this is not going to be a thesis movie for me.
This is no
but
Human
it is one
Centipede 3, all right?
Absolutely.
We'll get there, Bob. I mean, the Patreon pics just came out.
Get out of here, you nosy little pervert, or I'm going to slap you silly.
People sit on that one for a bit.
4 stars.
4 stars from Randeezy. It's going to put our aggregate at 3.75 for Adult Swim Yule Log. Let's jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment, see what the critics and users have to say.
Certified fresh. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment, in which I'm going to have these gentlemen guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is for Yule Log on RottenTomatoes.com. Now, this is an oddball movie, to be sure. Most people aren't aware that this is a movie at all, even if they come across it on streaming services. So that is, for that reason, we only have 5 critic reviews here to count from. 5. So what, in your mind, I'm going to start with Bob today. Bob, what in your mind is the aggregate positive score for Yule Log keeping in mind that there are only 5 reviews. So you should be able to get it. You should stand a reasonable chance of getting it right on the money. 1 out of 5 chance.
This cannot be a critical darling by any means. I don't see that happening at all. So, of my limited options, how low to go? I'll go with a man. I wonder if this is a fucking 0. I'll go with a 20%.
20%. Okay. Juice, how about you?
Wow, I think it's going to be higher than that.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be a choice between 60 and 80% with me and Bob, honestly. So I could be wrong, but I'll take the 60 then.
All right, 60%. So one of you is 20% points off. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it.
The correct answer is 80% positive on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
4 out of 5 critics agree.
Wow.
4 stars out of 5.
Yep,
Hell
that's right.
yeah.
There's no critical
jam.
consensus. Not a chance. There's no consensus
right.
amongst the 5.
Well, that's a hell yeet for Yule Log.
Wow, I am surprised.
There it is. Congrats to Juice on that one. I'm going to jump over now to the audience score, and even for it's still an oddball movie, so there are fewer than 50 ratings is what it tells me.
Okay.
Fewer than 50. So with that in mind, Juice, we're going to start with you this time. Where do you think those less than 50 reviews land this movie aggregate wise?
I think the nerds are going to come out for this one. I think the Randys of the world are going to rally around this guy.
Nerd.
But there's still going to be some outliers. This movie does have some heavy shit in it, and it does not represent itself for what it is. So I could see somebody accidentally stumbling across this or something. I don't know if they review it, but so I think I'll stick with my 60.
60. All right. Bob, where are you landing on it?
I'll take the over and go with the comedy number of 69, please.
Oh, wow. Somebody doesn't want the ringy dingy. But I'll tell you one thing. Juice did get the ringy dingy. It is 60% positive.
Oh, that's a hell yeet. Sweet, Bob.
Fucking A.
Bob, your guess made it impossible for me to draw it out for drama's sake. So
Fucking A. Well,
guess who it was? Was it the guy who did the comedy number?
could have been.
It was me.
No. Mathematically, no.
Congrats
to Juice
I
on
hope
your
there's
sweep.
a review on there of like some angry mom or dad that showed this to their kids on accident. I hope so.
You know,
Me too.
there are no featured reviews from the audience, so unfortunately, no. But there is one negative review that you can read on on RottenTomatoes.com, and it reads as this: Adult Swim Yule Log earns some laughs, but overstays its welcome as an absurd Christmas horror story based on a holiday tradition. I don't think that's unfair. I think that's
You
or
could
funny.
almost say anything about this, and you'd be like, "Yeah, that's fair."
And they would be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
This movie's boring.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
totally
guess so.
boring.
This
yeah.
that's actually maybe the only.
Actually, I
thing you
think that's
cannot
the
say
one
about
thing
that.
you could
Yeah.
not say about this
Yeah.
movie.
The
This
only
movie
thing you can
was
say is not
expected by the numbers, real paint by
I
numbers.
saw every turn coming miles away.
You see one Yule Log movie, you've seen them all. What can you say? Yeah, no, this is definitely a strange movie that is going to elicit a range of reactions. Unfortunately, we just only have the 5 to choose from. So
Yeah.
that's going to be our Rotten Tomatoes segment. Bob, I don't believe we have any of that trivia. It's a small movie.
Yeah, there's really I couldn't find anything. So no trivia this week, but we can get into our Cooter of the week. Let's do it.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what is a Cooter and why do we hunt them?
Oh, Cooter's a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter, but we want the Cooter with the most points. The 5 points of Cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, let's get ourselves a Christmas Cooter.
Man,
Dude, we got options.
You know, we got one.
We got.
Let's go with
options.
mother first. Mother.
Sexual
So I think she might hit higher. So we can go with sexual deviance as her number one, because she's about to rape this man. But
and also like instructing her son to do the same.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna go with manipulation on that one because obviously that's why I think maybe she might be higher because she's manipulating this whole thing. It makes it seem like the son is not maybe capable of thinking on his own or making his own decisions, and she clearly is, and she's masterminding all of this. So manipulation for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, she's actually she wants a grandbaby, and so she tells this like gargantuan man who has control issues and not a lot of brain power to assault, murder women, basically.
Well, not even that. It's worse.
Not even to murder them.
Yeah, to not murder them. Yeah. She creates the whole plan of we're going to keep it in the basement. We're going to have a basement.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Which is another fucking through line for Barbarian, by the way. There's so much in this movie.
True.
Man, Barbarian's a big ripoff. I think we can all agree.
I agree. And so, manipulation. I would say looking at tire because she does not brush her teeth.
And she's just fucking cheese mouth. God damn.
She wipes cheese off his mouth and eats it, and it makes me want to die.
I don't want to eat pimento cheese ever.
I love pimento cheese.
Me too, man. Pimento cheese rules.
Try.
But now you're going to be thinking about that mouth, Bob. I want you to think about
pretty
that.
good for store-bought.
Are you too fancy for pimento cheese? Do you wish it was foie gras?
Do you wish it was frog? That was actually like that was when she was really getting menacing. I was like,
she's a good actress. Like she does a good job.
Yeah, she did a good job. She did a good job.
She did such a good job. But yeah, like that's, I think it's clear to say sexual deviance.
Yeah.
Arrogance. Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of on the lighter side because she's like, she clearly has a complex, an inferiority complex to this man. So
yeah.
What else?
Well, I think she's got that touch of smug arrogance where she thinks like I got one over on you, like I'm on top when you feel like you're one at the bottom. Yeah.
Well, no. And she's also like, oh, you think I'm so stupid. You're going to make friends with me. That stuff. Patheticness. I think kind of her whole deal is pretty pathetic at the core of it. So
she gets punked by an alien like a bitch.
She gets turned into an Edgar suit.
She doesn't even know how to juke an alien gun. What a loser.
Fucking idiot. That gun is shaped like a sphincter, by the way.
It's a big butthole. That show's cracking me.
It shoots worms out of it. God damn.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think
and then he has like the multiple tongues. I forgot about that shit, too.
I did, I forgot about that, too.
Your trypophobia at all, Bob? It's probably not enough of them.
Yeah, I want enough. Thank God.
Thank
God.
So she hits.
She's high.
She hits deviance, manipulation, arrogance.
The son definitely too, of course.
They're kind of
sexual deviance. Deal. Yeah, they are. But he specifically got a more specific looking attire where he's got that fucking mask on. Jesus Christ.
No. The only thing is he just doesn't have the manipulation part because he's not capable of manipulating. It seems like he just, I don't know.
He says ding dong, so pathetic.
What? That's not acceptable pillow talk for you guys?
It's not.
You want to see the ding dong? Juice says it every night. He's just
that's my go-to. No,
look at
that would
check out my ding dong.
That would shut it down. I cannot support something that shuts it down.
My ding dong.
Anyway. Getting some good Randy bumps tonight.
Yeah, so who else though? Like, let's go with Colonel Satan. Like,
dude, okay,
that seems like Cooter
manipulation. Yes,
manipulation. Up. He's got a demonic manipulation about him.
His attire. Come on. Yeah,
that's fair.
His attire kind of slaps, honestly. I kind of love it.
It does, but for in a weird like that dude couldn't just stroll into the house and not go unnoticed.
Oh no, he doesn't blend in, but that's not necessarily because it's poorly dressed. It might be because he's more iconically dressed. But anyway, debatable, but I'll give it to you. Smug arrogance, certainly.
Yeah.
The way he like flies off the handle about time privilege.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Like that's like it's pointing at something, and it's I don't know. Like that is like one scene where I'm like, this is interesting, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to fucking think about that.
He's,
Like, I don't know.
excusing himself for being such a huge piece of shit because he was from a different time. Which is it's really interesting when he points the finger at her. He's like, what are people going to say about you? What is everything that you've done wrong in your life? And like, that's what makes it interesting. And because then you start thinking, well, fuck, what am I fucking up on in my life? What are people going to say about me?
It's true. Like Bob, like driving cars or buying certain clothes, or I mean,
we shop. Fair enough. We all shop at Walmart. We all get those major deals.
It's an interesting point in the movie, but it's not an excuse for being a fucking asshole.
Well, no.
You know, yeah.
Right.
We're all just
but it's also true.
Assholes.
Like that's the thing is we're there's no ethical consumption, etc.
Yeah. Mic drop.
So sexual deviancy.
I don't think
have
so.
Any indication of that. Yeah. Arrogance for sure. Did we cover arrogance already?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Arrogance. Yeah.
All right.
And then looking at tire. Yeah, I think we covered them all.
I think patheticness. I also think it is like
he gets
that
shut
scene
down at the end. Oh no, he doesn't. He comes back.
No, he gets stabbed with a fucking poker.
Like a little bitch.
I thought
that he's like actually little. It's not some illusion.
I know. I love that it's like you think that it's like you think it's like a Black Lodge situation where he goes through the curtain and then it's just disappeared from reality into another world. But no, he's just like a little guy with a room in the fucking fireplace.
Yeah, he's actually little.
Just a little guy.
But also like just the way he like freaks out. He's like, but the time privilege thing again. I'm like, that's pathetic. It's like you're equivocating with avocado. I ain't never even had avocado. I love that line. Actually, I wish I had bumped that line.
For next year, for 2024.
You and your damn avocado toast.
Anyway, I think he's bookable, but not as bad as the rednecks. I don't think.
Yeah, the mother for sure.
There's also the flashback to the dude who auctions off his own son out of shame.
What a piece of shit.
That's a good call. Yeah, that's pathetic because he lets his dad tell him to.
Yeah.
It was a manipulation because he doesn't like tell the mom.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
after the fact,
sexual deviancy because he's a married man having sex and having children with his, unfortunately, his property and his, manipulating his power in that way.
Dude, that sounds
actually, he ranks pretty high. Yeah. Smug arrogance. Yeah, he's pretty arrogant to think that she's not gonna fucking.
Yeah, he's like, kind of arrogant.
How is this man not afraid?
What am I supposed to do? I gotta get the money for the boy or whatever.
Yeah. He does not.
Oh my god.
Shit.
Yeah,
that's so funny because it reminds me. Not so funny, but that reminds me of the mom again. Actually, because she's like says, "I thought about adopting a Chinese baby, but how'd that look in church?" I love that line.
God, that's fantastic.
How would that look in church?
Oh my god!
Oh my god! And then that's what I thought. Like I was like, oh, did he say that? Oh no, the mom said that. The other,
the one place you can't bring the adopted child that you fucking love is the church.
Fucking church. How would that look in church? That's that line alone. You could write like a series of screenplays off that one idea.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So we got quite a bit here.
Yeah, there's a lot.
We got a litany. We got we could also go to the sheriff. We could go to there's a number of people you could go to. Sheriff.
Take them all. Round them all up. God damn.
Yeah.
I think Mother Redneck is
top tier.
Mother, all right.
I think so too. She hit every point. She's the only one that hit every point in some way.
I mean, I just want cheese after that scene, personally.
Dude, you are obsessed with that scene, and it concerns me that you're not put off to the pimento cheese because of that.
It fucking made me laugh so hard.
Bob wants to be in that chair. Bob's thinking, "Oh, hey, whoa,
Bob's discovered something about himself this year." Merry Christmas to you.
He's known all along.
she's like, "I'm sorry for my old lady cheese breath." my God.
Oh God.
Plump. So right.
So fucking heinous. Oh my God.
Mama is getting
right.
excited.
We got her locked
It's
up.
so
That's what a
heinous.
boy like.
You guys remember how heinous that was?
Please don't
so
tie me
heinous.
up and
Brain.
do that.
It's so heinous. I can't stand up right now. It's so heinous.
That's not what I desperately want for Christmas. All you old ladies out there listening to the show, don't come to
God.
my house with pimento cheese. All right,
Ooh.
that's
You want to
enough.
see my ding dong?
That's enough. We
Mom,
got
put it away.
Behind the scenes is not going to get monetized this time around.
it's just little Debbie cakes floating around. We're just slamming them.
Jesus
Let's
Christ.
talk about what we've been watching this week, gentlemen.
Let's do that.
Hey, gang, what you been watching?
Randeezy, what you been watching, man?
Let's see. So I'm finally kind of in the groove of watching Christmas stuff. Sorry. Looking something up. Okay, yeah, there we go. So I finally got into that stuff. I watched a little bit of Kunk on Earth, the Philomena Kunk show. That's not Christmas, but I had a good time with that. I just want to mention it. I watched the Creep Show holiday special that came out a year or two or something ago. This is not very good. It's
Yeah.
very, it was, if it had been funnier, it would have been fine, but it wasn't. It was very kind of, all the jokes were landing with a thud for me. The night before, I finally watched that. Rob, you've mentioned that a few times, and I did enjoy it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but it did have a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of relevance to my aging ass. So I definitely felt those moments where I was like, oh my God, yes. Aging out of fun. That's a real pleasure to think about on the holidays. Great.
Used to be fun, Randy.
Not anymore.
Dude, Michael Shannon is the most intense motherfucker that's ever walked
He
this earth.
is.
He's terrifying.
I want to
Even
buy
his
a Hummer.
interviews kind of scare me.
Yeah.
I watched him. Actually, I mentioned earlier this guy Brett Davis, comedian in New York. He had a public access show where he would just like every week do something completely different as a character, and like just like create a narrative. But once he always had a musical guest on, and once he had Michael Shannon, who has a little bit of like a country sort of outfit going, he had him on, and his character, Brett Davis's character, was being a dickhead. He's like, well, that sucked, right? Everybody thinks that sucked. And Michael Shannon's like, oh, come on, guy. And he's like, no, it sucked. And Michael Shannon's like, great, okay. And he just kind of like, he's like, very much fuck you, and walked out.
Dang.
It was great.
Oh, Michael.
I don't know how seriously pissed off he was, but he sure seemed seriously pissed off. Anyway,
Got a
the
stone
night
cold
before.
face, man.
dude, yeah, he's carved out a fucking brick. All right. Next, I watched All the Creatures Were Stirring, which is sort of an anthology Christmas thing that I've always seen around. Also not good. Not very good. It had some moments maybe, but it was largely forgettable is how I would put it. I did finally, this is not horror, but I did get to see Home Alone finally again. I watched Home Alone 2 last week. I can watch them out of order. It's that familiar to me at this point. I've seen that movie.
That's
I was thinking about it.
debatable, Randy.
I've seen that movie at least 25, maybe 30 times in my life. Like, that's incredible to think about, actually. Buzz your girlfriend woof, as we all famously say. Black Christmas. I caught the second 2/3 or the last 2/3 of that movie on Shudder. I just kind of tuned in and it was on, and I enjoy that movie a whole lot. It's frankly an incredible movie.
You tuned into Shudder?
They have like they have like stuff that's just playing.
Oh,
also
really?
on Shudder.
You got
didn't
like
know that.
3
Yeah.
TV channels you can turn
Oh,
on.
Yeah,
okay.
that's just like movie marathons on each channel.
Gotcha.
Different
Okay.
themes. That's what Joe Bob comes on.
Mm.
And then Anna and the Apocalypse, finally saw that. And they had some good songs, but I didn't care that much for the humor in that either. It
Old
was
dated now.
Yeah, and Juice, you've brought this up before, where like you don't love musicals because you get like some like secondhand embarrassment from it or whatever. And I was getting a little bit of that from this one,
Yeah.
which is not something
it
I
does
always
have some good
experience.
ones, though.
It does. Like the actual like singing is great. Like it's really great
it
singing.
actually is,
The songs, they ramp up, like do like, but it's like it really feels more like theater kid stuff than
It does.
than it is a horror stuff or a Christmas stuff movie. It's like there's
some
like an
charm
excuse
to it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't dislike it, but it's not something I'm going to watch too much. You know?
That's fair enough.
Probably, yeah. And then last, this is not a Christmas thing, but Beck's been throwing on this documentary series, not true crime, but kind of adjacent, called The Garden Cult or Commune or something along those lines, about a commune that is very famous and still active right now. And they just like have these cameramen there or whatever. And it's just like, it's just rage bait for me, man. It just makes me like so mad watching these people. Like it's so like if it is a cult in my opinion, and it's no different than like it's all this bullshit about, oh, we're egalitarian, you have to all agree and all this stuff, but it's not true. Like there's like always 2 or 3 big personalities that everybody else cows to in order to keep the peace, and it just drives me up the fucking wall. And like some like they have. Like I saw a little bit earlier today where this like doomsday prepper or whatever showed up, and he's like this big country dude who's expecting it to be like a compound, and he shows up, he's like, oh, this is some hippie shit, and like I ended up like, and he's like this big MAGA guy, a big like, you know, whatever, but like everybody's acting so fucking insane in this commune and so like I don't know, like self-righteous and serious that he ends up being like, in my eyes, like he's kind of the good guy, at least where I left it off. I was like, he's like, yeah, I kind of had to call bullshit on some of the stuff. I was like, yeah, good for you, man. Call bullshit. But yeah, that I can't watch any more of that show though. It bums me out. Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to Christmas
watching
movies.
Something that's depressing. What?
It's not like there's not the typical Beck depressing
Can't
stuff where it's like
that.
categorically depressing. This is just depressing to me because I just I hate self-righteousnness. But yeah, that's it for me. Juice, why don't you take it away?
I've been doing some holiday watches still, of course. Krampus, you got to do it. Rewatch Gremlins. I agree with Rennie. It's a lot of fun. Home Alone Deuce, you got to do it. It's very violent. Ridiculous. Those dudes are dead immediately.
Oh, you're cooking, Frankie.
Also, Randy had mentioned this maybe last year. At some point, Randy's mentioned it with Fat Man with Mel Gibson and Walton Goggins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting movie because even though Randy had recommended it, I wasn't exactly prepared for kind of the kind of movie that it was. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was an interesting watch.
I still feel weird about going into a Mel Gibson movie in the first place, but
kind of Mel Gibson's approach was kind of weird. Like there are things that I like and think were good, and things that I'm like, I don't know about that.
I like the overall conceit, and some of the performances are good, but yeah, it's weird because of Mel Gibson, and it's weird because it's just like a tonally odd movie.
It is, yeah. So I watched that. Watch Bad Santa while I was wrapping presents. That's one of those movies where I used to like it a lot more than I kind of do now. It's still okay, but I used to like it a lot more. But this time around, I hadn't seen it maybe in a few years, and I was like, I will say the woman who's in that though, she was also in Gilmore Girls or whatever. She's fine.
Laura something, yeah, she's very beautiful.
Whoa, no, especially in that movie.
I didn't see that movie until like a couple years ago. I'm sure I brought it up on the show.
Oh, really?
But it's not one that I'm
it's not
itching to return to.
For sure.
Yeah, it wasn't as appealing this time around. It could have just been because I was younger and thought that shit was.
There's really only a handful of lines in that movie that I'm like, oh, that's funny, and the rest of it is like very dated, like
it's pretty dated
bullshit humor that's not really hitting me at this stage in my life.
Yeah. So yeah, I watched that. I watched trying to get ready for that list that's coming up. This is one I've been trying to watch for a little while. It's called Anus Men. Anus Men.
No, it's
yeah. ENYS. It's man, I didn't think anything could compete with Skinamarink on the terms of slow paced, experimental, grainy as fuck movies, but this one does, coming out the same year.
Damn.
Dude, yeah, you got to be a patient motherfucker to watch this movie. And and it is very experimental. And the way I was kind of thinking about it after I finished it, talking about Skinamarink, I was like, Skinamarink, it's like if you were comparing them, because they're very, very different, but also very similar in some really weird ways. But it would be like if Skinamarink was Hereditary, then definitely this one would be The Lighthouse. Because it's kind of the same thing. It's like a woman alone on an island, alone-ish on an island, kind of in this old, not a lighthouse, but old style kind of house. And she's doing some kind of like scientific research. So she just does the same thing. Like every day you see her do the kind of the same thing, of going to check on these plants that grow on the island and like recording it. I think it's shot on real film though. So it's definitely done a lot like, cinematically, it's better. I think it's actually shot on film. It's actually like you can see shit going on, but it's very similar in like tone where you're like, okay, what do we do? Like it'll have just still shots of just showing one thing multiple times. They're very similar, actually. Very strange. So I watched that one, but that's a new horror film from this year. So I got that one on the list, and I just started. I think it's probably the last watch I'm going to get to for our list, but the Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, I think. Mm-hmm. So I haven't finished it yet, but I was actually liking what I was seeing so far. So I'm just not getting around to it, but I'm looking forward to finishing that movie. So yeah, that's all I've been watching. Bob, what you been watching?
Well, big shout out to everybody that was hanging out for Joe Bob this past Friday. I could not get Shudder to load on my damn laptop, so I didn't do a proper stream like we usually do. But we were chatting in the Slack. So Joe Bob showed The Brain, and he also showed Ginger Dead Man, and I can't watch Ginger Dead Man. I just can't fucking do it. But I watched The Brain again. I like that movie. It's a sneaky Christmas movie. It's a weird giant brain killing folks. Check it out.
You know, I tuned in for a minute, and it was like they were interviewing Charles Band's wife. And that lady seemed like she had every ounce of cocaine in the building in her nose.
That is possible. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that, to be perfectly honest. She was very amped up. That's all I'm saying.
I saw people online saying like, it's, I don't know, they had problems with the marriage or whatever because of the age discrepancy, which I get because I think she's like at least 20 years younger than he is or something. But they've also apparently been dating for 20 years. So I don't know. Whatever.
The fuck? I didn't know that.
Charles Band is like kind of a strange guy.
He's an iffy guy.
From what I can tell, you know. I also watched. I watched Out Cold, which is like a snowboarding comedy movie from 2006, I think it was, with Zach Galifianakis. Because I've been on this train of watching like snowboarding, ski lodge type movies. I remember seeing it in theaters when it came out, and I thought it was hilarious. Watching it now, it doesn't hold up. It's not particularly funny.
Man, isn't that a bummer?
It is a bummer. There's like a couple gags in it that work, but it just doesn't. It's not. Don't watch it. It's not really worth it. I also watched this movie called The Door, which is a Japanese film from 1988. It's on Screambox. That's where I watched it. It's also on Blu-ray from TerraVision if you want to pick it up. I think you can. It's like a home invasion movie, which is kind of interesting to see from Japan. I feel like the majority of the stuff that we talk about from Japan as far as like horror movies go is like ghost movies, haunting movies or whatever. And this is not that by any means. It's this woman. She's married. She's got a kid. Her husband works like multiple days at a time where he doesn't come home. And there's this dude knocking on the door trying to like sell whatever. It doesn't really matter. And she smashes his hand in the door trying to close it because she doesn't want what he wants. And it just like escalates. The whole thing just like gets kind of crazy from there. And I really enjoyed it for what it is. The last 30 minutes, like, shit really does pop off. There's some great cinematography in it. There's some pretty scary moments and some solid acting. If you want to see something maybe a little bit different as far as like Japanese horror goes, check out The Door. I thought it was solid, man. It's pretty good.
What prompted you to watch that?
Well, TerraVision has just been putting out a lot of really obscure stuff, and I noticed some of it, not all of it, has been landing on Screambox, and we just got that Screambox subscription for the podcast. And I threw it on. I was thinking about picking it up, but I threw it on just to watch it before I did, and like pretty solid actually.
Whoa, Bob, showing some restraint there.
Look at me, growth.
Look at me.
Prepare your brain for razzle dazzle.
Now that he's a married man, he's he can't just go spend all willy nilly like
I don't have money anymore. The wife just took it all. The last thing
women, as we all know, be shopping.
Whoa.
The last thing I'll mention real quick is a Netflix movie just came out a week or two ago. I forget. It's called Leave the World Behind. It's based on a book, I believe. And it's another like 2.5 hour long Netflix movie that just desperately needed an editor to go through it with a fine tooth comb. It's about the end of the world. It's like an apocalyptic kind of thing. This family, they go to the beach and there's like a giant tanker that runs ashore, and it turns out like all telecommunications go offline and they don't know exactly what's happening. Animals are going crazy. Everything's just kind of nuts, and so they're stuck in this like beach house that they rented, and the people that they rented the beach house from go to it too because it's like the only safe place for them, and they don't trust each other, and crazy stuff happens. It feels like it's going somewhere, and it just doesn't ever really resolve the movie. It doesn't land the plane. It feels like somebody's like, I'm making one hell of a motherfucking movie that's gonna blow people's nuts off, but they really just didn't do that at all. The camera won't stop moving. It won't stop panning, spinning, flipping, doing figure fucking eggs. It drives me nuts, dude. I didn't like this movie at all. I think it's quite bad. A lot of people are like, it's one of the greatest movies of the year. It's not.
I've seen that, yeah.
It is.
I've seen it a couple times. I saw your rating on IMDb or not on Letterboxd, and then right next to it was somebody else that I respect their opinion quite a bit. Was very high.
I didn't like it. It's called Leave the World Behind. It feels a bit up its own keister for my taste.
What?
I know, but that's I know we got to wrap up. That's all I'll talk about for this week. We don't have any voicemails. If you do want to call in, leave a voicemail for next week. Hit us up at 904-638-3231. Why don't you tell us about your Christmas? What happened? How you doing? You get some crazy.
How was your year?
Some crazy.
Oh well, no, we're not going to actually. We won't be getting voicemails until the new year. So.
Yeah, we probably won't air them on the next show, most likely. But call in anyways.
Because it's our list. Yeah.
Just call in and tell us what your top of the year is. How about that?
True, yeah.
Like
top of the year. Yeah.
Top 3, top 5, top 10.
Or what you're most excited for also.
Next year, yeah.
Tell us why Leave the World Behind is your number one movie of the year, because I would like to know. I'd like to know.
Tell us why The Lodge is your favorite movie of 2023.
Oh, my God. Hit us up, 904-638-3231. Next week, we're doing our year-ender top 10 horror movies of the year. Tune in. Find out what we thought about 2023. Another year come and gone.
The trendsetters, let us tell you what's good.
You don't know. We have to tell you because you
let
can't
me tell you what's good.
Oh, yeah. We're the authorities, clearly. Nobody else does this, by the way. We're the only horror podcast that does top 10 show, period. We've been at it.
I heard that.
We're the only critics you've ever heard of.
All right. Yeah, call in 904-638-3231. Watch every movie that came out this year. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, find us on all the social media, Straight Chilling Podcast. You know where we're at. Be well. Have a Merry Christmas. Happy holiday. Enjoy yourself. Chug eggnog. And until next week, as always, keep chilling.
Have you heard of our podcast?